Hi, we're NeoGenesis, and we're based right out in Pittsburgh.
Happy to be starting this channel with my buddy Mike. My name's Justin.
And I'm Mike again.
And we're excited to be showing you some of our favorite gaming memories from the past 30 years.
Now, what got you started into gaming?
My first in-game system was the Sega Genesis.
Mine too!
And I love the Sega Genesis. My first game from the Sega Genesis when I was 2 years old was the Aladdin Disney Sega Genesis cart. And I played that game for hours and hours.
My god, I have that exact same game.
We're excited to be showing you what we have here. Let's take a look.
This is my complete Sega Genesis Model 2 system, complete with the 32X, Sega CD, and if you didn't know, in the mid-90s, they came out with a wireless peripheral that was IR sensor for wireless game controllers, officially Sega licensed. And they kind of look like this. Now these you have to have pointed directly at the system to work, but on the bottom, there's a switch for 1 to 2 players, so it could designate who's player 1, who's player 2, but they were automatically 6-button controllers, which is great if you wanted to play Mortal Kombat 2, or most importantly, Street Fighter.
Well, what's the range on that, Mike?
I found that it's about 5 to 6 feet. It really doesn't matter as long as the IR sensor is pointed directly at the receiving. My fondest memories of playing on the Sega Genesis has to be when I was about 5 years old. The first game being the home edition of Golden Axe, complete in box. Many years ago when I was a little kid, my dad would take me to the flea market, and there was an arcade there, and it was Golden Axe, and I had so many memories of him and I just popping quarters in, playing through the first level. But when this came out on Sega, it was the first thing that my dad picked up for us to play, and man, was it a great time. Essentially, you play in a Conan the Barbarian style world, where you travel across the land to fight the evil Death Adder, and you get 3 characters to choose from. You can be a barbarian known as Axe Battler, or a Amazon named Tyrus Flare, or you could be the dwarf who wields the actual golden axe, Goliath Thunderhead.
Not many people know that.
Not many people know that indeed, but a great hack and slash beat 'em up for the time.
And you can't forget that music too.
No, you can't. Just that intro is phenomenal. What was your, other than Aladdin, what was your other favorite games to play?
So my second favorite game for the Sega Genesis would definitely be Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Oh my gosh.
And you can't talk about Sega without talking about Sonic. And the Sonic 2, for whatever reason, that game was my game. I would be playing that. I could beat that maybe 20 times, 30 times, 40 times and never get bored of the awesome, the speed that Sonic was able to produce during that time. We didn't see a lot of games like that. And it was, almost like a total different direction from Super Mario Brothers.
The blast processing.
Yes, you had the blast processing and the music. It just takes such a different turn with his attitude, and the way that he carries himself was a total opposite of what we saw from Super Mario, another favorite of mine. But Sonic the Hedgehog for me was my second favorite game for the Sega Genesis.
I remember having Sonic and Knuckles, and we're going to talk about that later on in this channel. We're going to talk about all the Sonic games, but Sonic the Hedgehog, for me, I didn't really get into it till Sonic and Knuckles came out, and I love the fact that you can open up the cartridge and add one of the other 3 Sonic games to expand the actual gameplay experience.
One of the coolest features.
But another memorable classic that's one of my favorite is always going to be Vector Man and Vector Man 2 on the Sega Genesis.
Great games.
When I was a little kid, Vector Man was just one of the highlights of just playing the game. You're basically a robot composed of floating balls.
Yes.
But it's set in the distant future where basically humanity polluted the entire Earth, and you're a robot sent to clean it up. And during this time, like, other robots kind of become corrupted, and there's the boss, Warhead. He found a nuclear warhead missile, and he basically is turning the robots against you, and it's up to you to clean it up and save the world. But Vector Man 2, released really late in the Sega Genesis life, was kind of the good follow-up, where now Vector Man's on a bug planet. So instead of robots, he's shooting alien bugs. But definitely...
And those graphics, oh my goodness.
They use the same graphics, just like in Donkey Kong Country on the Super Nintendo. It was kind of that like pseudo like stop motion 3D-esque type feel.
Yes.
But Genesis was capable of a lot of great things. And it's time.
And for my next game, you know, this is definitely a hidden gem for a lot of people who may not know this game for the Sega Genesis. When you think of Disney for the Sega Genesis, you think of possibly Aladdin, possibly Lion King.
Don't mention that.
You might think about, what's the game? You might think about Castle of Illusion. You know, but for me, my personal favorite out of that entire series and universe was World of Illusion. Now, World of Illusion was a game where you could be Mickey or you could be Donald Duck.
And I think I remember this one.
Yes.
The password system was all cards.
Yes, it was cards. Your main screen had the playing cards where you could enter your password. And not only that, but one really cool feature about this game is depending if you played one player as Mickey the Mouse, Donald Duck, or in a two-player campaign, you would get a different series of levels for each single choice you made.
See, I remember renting a lot of these games at a mom and pop video store when I was younger.
Yeah, and this game, for what I would enjoy playing it as Mickey, and then I would go through again and I would play as Donald Duck. You could finish the whole game in a couple hours, but the gameplay, the music, I just fell in love with this game as a kid. I remember playing it with my younger sister growing up, and it was just a very nostalgic memory for me.
Nice. One of my last games I'm going to talk about today, and we're going to talk about a ton of other games, both retro and modern.
Oh, yeah.
How to get you into collecting, and kind of what to look for. But on top of the Sega, this is the month of October here. You can't mention Castlevania on the Sega Genesis. Castlevania Bloodlines. Whoops! Can't forget to mention Castlevania Bloodlines on the Sega Genesis. This was probably like the 6th or 7th game in the series, but growing up as a kid, this was one of the first Castlevania games that I ever played. And coincidentally enough, a lot of Genesis games, and we're going to talk about this in a future episode, came in 2 different boxes.
Right.
You can either get a cardboard box or you can get a clamshell.
And I miss those clamshells.
And you know what? When I first moved here, I was like 9 years old, and when Kmart was still around.
Right.
It was probably like 1999, probably about, early June, and I saw this on the shelf, and I didn't have a Sega at the time. My parents had sold it. We moved on to the N64.
Right.
But just seeing this, I remember seeing it. It was marked down. It was sitting on the clearance rack for maybe about like $19, and I was just brought back a flood of memories. But I'm a huge Castlevania buff, so can't forget about having this in your collection.
We want to know what your favorite video game memories are.
Leave a comment in the description below and tell us what were your fondest memories of the Sega Genesis, or even other game systems as well. Maybe we'll talk about those in the future.
I'm really excited to be starting this channel, so please leave us a like, comment below, share our videos. We're excited to be getting started on YouTube.
And subscribe to see more.
Thanks.